Welcome back to Semantic Web Technologies. This is the first lecture, the Web of Data, and we are now at part 2. And in part 2, we want to explore the limits of the current World Wide Web. So, one of the problems in the web, of course, is how do we find information in the web? How can we really find and look up this tiny little straw in this immense universe of information? So today, of course, there's Google. The current solution is go to Google, write your phrase inside the little tiny box, and then look at the results. But the problem is, of course, the web is big, really big. So you just won't believe how vastly, hugely, mind-bogglingly big it is, at least according to Douglas Adams. So let's take a look how big is the web really. The search engine providers, they have their problems when they have to state the current size of their search indices. It means they do not want to tell you how big really the content in the search engine is. So they stopped around at 2005, 2006 in selling messages how many index documents were in there. So one of the very last messages there, or news messages, was with Google that 29 or 25 billion indexed documents were inside the Google search index. A few years later, 2008, we received another message that the web crawler at Google, this is the tiny little program that crawls the web and gathers all the information that the search engine has to process. The web crawler has reached the border of 1 trillion documents, a vast number of documents. Of course, not all these documents are inside the index of Google because they are not all relevant, but at least it gives you an idea how vast the size of information really in this universe is. Then in 2010, Google switched their search index software to a new software. And then they told the public that this search index almost comprises 100 million gigabytes of data. So this is an immense number. So this is a huge index. Just imagine to put this index inside the main memory of a computer. 100 million gigabytes. Incredible. And of course, these documents that the web crawler really reaches is not the entire web. There is even more. Just think of access restricted documents that a crawler is not able to reach. Just think of intranets and stuff like that. This stuff that the web crawler doesn't reach and that is not represented in search engines usually is called the dark web or the deep web. And in the beginning of the web, so almost 10 years ago, there were estimations that this dark web is about 500 times bigger than the so-called surface web. But of course, nowadays, this relation is much closer, so the dark web is not such big. Okay, but this gives you an idea of the current state of the web, but that's not all. The web is getting bigger and bigger by the minute. So for example, I have here a little chart that states how many data is put on the web in 1 single minute. So for example, you have here at YouTube, you have more than 48 hours of video upload in 1 minute. You have more than 200 million mails sent a minute. Google receives more than 2 billion search queries a minute. And for example, here at Facebook, users share more than 600,000 pieces of content in a minute. Consumers, this is a nice number, consumers spend about 272,000 US dollars a minute in the web, so that's immense. And on the other hand, here, for example, Twitter users, they send over 100,000 tweets. Apple receives about 47,000 app downloads a minute, and Facebook receives 35,000 likes. Tumblr has 27,000 publications and new posts. Instagram has almost 4,000 new pictures a minute. Flickr also has more than 3,000 new pictures a minute. And at Foursquare, more than 2,000 people tell the web where they are right now. So this is really immense. And you have here 2.1 billion people connected to the web providing information. And not even that. The next step, of course, is not people, but it's things. So the Internet of Things really is the next big thing that, of course, will hit the Internet. So already here in 2008, the number of things and devices connected to the Internet exceeded the number of people on Earth. It's incredible, isn't it? And by 2020, they say there will be about 50 billion devices connected to the web. So that's immense. And when they are all connected to the web, so for example, all your household devices are connected to the web, of course, they will exchange messages. And they will exchange messages also in social networks. So they will start to Twitter. They will start to post on Facebook, on Google+. They will start to put pictures automatically on Flickr and stuff like that. And of course, this is an immense amount of data. And the problem with this amount of data is, okay, in the same way, like you, for example, if you are not able to understand or to read Japanese language, you have no idea what all this information is all about because it doesn't make sense to you. And also, it doesn't make sense to the machine. So the problem is, how can I determine what is important and not how can a machine determine which information is really the important information? So let's put it to a rather simple form. What of this information is real content information? What is only an advertisement? What does all this information mean? No idea. So, and also, if you have any idea what this information means, how trustworthy is it? How credible is it? Which parts of the website do really belong together? What is redundant information? So we humans, we are fortunate because we are used to this analysis stuff all our lifetime. So we have the contextual knowledge, the world knowledge, the experience to solve the problem and to understand the information, for example, because when we have learned Japanese. But for a machine, this is really difficult, especially in the web. For example, in the web, all information is encoded in HTML. HTML is a simple markup language that puts the information on the web and gives you a presentation format. It means it only decides how the information is presented to you and does not describe how or what this information really means. So the big problem that we face here is that in the web, there is only information in the form of textual information where the meaning is hidden in the language. And the only language to put more information on the web here, HTML, has the problem that it only contains information how the original information is presented and how the information is linked. And that's it. So there is almost no representation for any meaning. So the question is, what is the meaning of the information provided in the web? Because if we cannot make sense of the meaning, we are completely lost. And also search engines have their difficulties to cope with this vast amount of information. So in the next section of this lecture, we will talk about the importance of meaning of information on the web.